all set.
Well, appreciate you guys coming out here today. I'm going to be talking about freelancing in your free time. You may be wondering who I am. My name is Ben Kanelos. During my day job, I work as an architect for an architecture firm. I'm licensed, and that's what I do most of the day. But at night, I do freelance game design work. So I have a number of things that I have self-published as well as had published through publishers. So most of these are social deduction games as well as some work in RPG fields and a whole wide gamut of projects and different publishers I've been working with. So today, what am I going to be talking about? I'm going to be talking about freelancing. I'm going to try and make it as general as possible. I'm going to winnow it down into the specifics of what I do for game design. And if we have a bit of time, I will talk about some tips and tricks that I use for my actual game design and what I do there. But mainly I'm going to be covering freelancing, what I do, how I do it, and hopefully why I do it. So before we get started, there's some things I want to warn you about. First of all, this is just me and what I've done and what works for me. So these things that I'm telling you, if you put them into practice, they don't work for you. Don't worry, it's not you, it's just probably my bad advice. Your results will vary. I also tend to talk very fast. I do have experience in front of the classroom. I got licensed as a secondary mathematics teacher, so if at any point you feel like you have a question or you want me to give more information, we don't have to wait for a Q&A at the end of this. I'm more than happy to answer things as we move along. Finally, I'm not a lawyer. I said I'm an architect. That means I don't have a law degree, I'm not passed any bars or anything along those lines. So if you want legal advice, don't come to me, and anything I say that sounds like legal advice is not. You should talk to a lawyer about those things, and don't take my word for it. So let's start talking about freelancing in general, for those of you who are interested in freelancing. Are any of you close to graduation? Congratulations, congratulations. Your life is about to change in some pretty drastic ways. These are things I just didn't even think about when I was graduating from architecture school at the University of Michigan. And when I graduated, it was a year before the housing crisis. So my prospects got pretty bleak pretty quick. Hopefully, with the way the economy is now, things keep moving along, and you guys are going to have a much different experience. But when I graduated, I had to move from my hometown near Ann Arbor all the way out to Cleveland. And the first thing I noticed is my peer group shrunk drastically. When you're here at school, you're surrounded by people your age, and you have a lot of things in common with them because you're all going through the same sort of experience. But when you get out into the wider work world, you're going to find that you're going to be with a bunch of people of different ages, of different backgrounds, of different departments. You know, you may be hired on to do one thing, but you're going to have an HR department and an advertising department and all sorts of things. So you're going to find you're surrounded by a lot fewer people who sort of share your interests so closely. Even though you are probably thinking you're done with all of your tests because you're not going to have to turn anything and get anything graded, there are still tests. They're much more sneaky now. We're talking about peer reviews, performance reviews, all sorts of things. Everything that you turn into your boss, anything that you're working on, is getting graded in their mind. And they're thinking about things not just A, B's, and C's, letter grades. They're thinking about promotions. What other responsibilities can I give to this person? So just because you don't think you're necessarily being graded, you might be. So keep that in mind. You've been well trained to pass tests, so hopefully you can continue passing those tests out in the wider world. Finally, you're going to find maybe that you have a lot more free time. When I was in architecture school, I had something called studio, which is an 8-hour class 3 times a week. So I was frequently pulling 12 to 16 hours a day with all my schoolwork. And so when I was lucky enough to land a 9 to 5 out in Cleveland, I suddenly had my evenings free, which was not something that I had for the past 4 years. So I had a lot of free time and a lot of extra energy to burn because I was so used to doing work all day that I decided to turn it around into something. So I decided to spend a lot of my evenings freelancing. Before you jump into freelancing, just be aware that you don't have to monetize all of your time. Your work-life balance when you get out into the world is your decision. You can do whatever you want. When you get home at night, if you just want to chill and play video games or read a book, whatever you find fulfilling, by all means do that. There's a lot of pressure, especially on our generation. They're starting to call us the burnout generation, to basically monetize every minute, live a very sort of public life that is filtered through social media, so you're almost always performing, and it can really drain you. So if you don't feel like turning a hobby into a jobby or freelancing in whatever aspect, you don't have to. And just be aware that there will be a lot of pressures, that you should always be doing something. You don't need to if that's not what you want to do. If you do turn your hobby into a jobby, be aware it will change your relationship with whatever that hobby was. When I play games now, because I work on game design, I cannot be in the moment anymore, because I'm constantly picking apart what is the game designer trying to accomplish here? How do I feel about these mechanics? Are the rules presented clearly? I'm not in the moment just enjoying the experience that was coming to me. So whatever thing that you begin working on and trying to monetize in some way, you naturally have to become a critic of that thing, and it will change the way you relate to that activity that you are doing. You will find pleasure in what you're doing if you have develop that critical eye, but you will be enjoying those aspects of the hobby for a different reason and in a different way. I find it to be a much more deeper experience that I get from playing games, once I can sort of pull apart what I think the designer's intent were, and all the different sort of artifacts that you can find within it. But then again, I'm not just getting that surface level experience of just enjoying the game and eating through it as if it's content. So let's talk about freelancing. If you do decide to start freelancing, it may seem obvious, but freelancing is a job. You should treat it as a job, and the best way to sort of set yourself apart from the crowd is to be professional. Because when you're freelancing, you're most likely going to be a sole proprietor. Your reputation is what people are going to be coming to you for. They want someone that they can work with. So, I mean, some keys are, be dependable. If you say you're going to do something, do that thing, because if you're not dependable, it'll get out there that people can't rely on you, no one's going to want to work with you. Do good work. I'm sure you do good school work, so when you get out into the work world, do good work. It's people want quality products when they go to people, and if word gets out that you do good work, more people are going to want to work with you. And respect deadlines. It's very important that if you tell someone that you're going to turn something around for them in a certain amount of time, they can schedule that out, because you will no longer be one piece of a puzzle. I mean, you are going to be a piece of a larger puzzle, as opposed to just doing assignments. When you turn in an assignment, you're just only affecting yourself there, but your assignment, imagine, is now the next step to some other larger process, and if you blow up someone's deadline, it's not going to go well for them. When you're out there and you're starting to contact people that you want to work with, be sure to do your research first. No one likes spam mail, no one likes spam phone calls, so don't be that spammer. Be sure to find the right person that you need to contact and contact them for the right reasons. Additionally, you should learn to use a phone for phone calls. When you're out there, most of the people, especially the business leaders, are going to be of older generation, and you may be used to talking through text message and Slack and all these other types of forms of communication. Most of the older generation likes to just get on the phone, have a conversation, talk it through, and then hang up that phone. And so if you are able to do that, you will set yourself apart. If money is changing hands, you should form an LLC. This is twofold. The power is twice. First of all, it makes you look professional, because it takes money to form an LLC. It doesn't cost a whole lot. You can do it online through websites like LegalZoom. I'm not sure what the rules are here out in West Virginia, but when I did out in Ohio, it was really quite easy. It shows that you're invested in yourself and you have an entity with which to represent yourself. It goes a long way to separating yourself from the crowd. Secondly, it protects your assets. It gives a break between your personal assets and your business assets, that if something for whatever reason goes terribly wrong and you're on the hook for something, they can't come after your house, your car, and all these other things, because if it's tied up in an LLC, it's basically a break between those two things. So it's important to form an LLC if you're going to be moving money around. If you're freelancing in a creative field, and I'm talking blogging, graphic design, being an artist, I do game design, you're going to have to learn to thicken your skin. When I was in architecture school, we would do something which is called a critique, or a crit for short. Once every 2 weeks, you would take everything that you were working on these big long-term projects, you would put it up on the wall. So everybody's work for all your classmates was on the wall, and then you would have to present to your professor and maybe some guest professors or lecturers or the dean, and they would just pull it apart and really critique, basically find the flaws in what you were doing. And at first I hated this. It was really just a terrible, terrible experience, because they would find the soft underbellies of your work and they would poke at it and make it feel terrible that you weren't accomplishing what you wanted to accomplish. But what you learn from that is you have to learn to defend your work, and you have to learn that everything that you're putting up on the wall matters. You can't just wave your hand at something and say, this will make more sense later, because later is now, and now you have to present it. When you get critiqued, it makes your work better. So you should, when you're freelancing, no one's going to force you to critique. No one's going to force your work onto a wall, but you should be putting it out there on a wall for someone to look at, because everyone is going to be bringing a different experience to what you are designing and what your artistic, what you're putting out there artistically. So their different experiences may be giving them different things that they're reading off of that, and if you're not reaching them in the way you want to reach them, it may not be you, it may be, but you must understand what they're coming from. When people start to criticize your work, it's gonna hurt, but there's some good ways to take that criticism. The first thing is separate yourself from that work. You're pouring so much of yourself and your energy and your artistic endeavors into this thing, but it's not you. You are separate from your work. And so when someone criticizes your work, they're not criticizing you. They may not like that thing, but they're not saying that they don't like you. Also, you can't be reactive when someone says something negative about your work, because you'll never hear it and you'll never understand what they don't understand about your work or why it's not working for them. You can't listen from a defensive posture. If someone says something negative about your work, you should ask them, well, what makes you feel that way? What could I do differently? And basically draw out their opinion so you can understand what is making them say that about your work. So, my other advice about freelancing is, I'm talking about you all being unique and having different strengths and backgrounds. You should bring that to your work. So I work as an architect, and people think that means I go to job sites and I point at things with building plans in my hand. But really, I spend most of my time in front of a computer working on a program called AutoCAD, what my father-in-law thought was called AutoCAD. So what I'm actually doing all day is I'm drawing construction documents. And these are just elaborate sets of instructions that a general contractor can turn into a built structure of some type. I do lots of residential work, so my drawings usually get turned into houses. But whenever a client comes to us, they're not asking for a house, they're asking for a lifestyle. They want a bigger kitchen because they want to entertain. They want an additional bedroom because they're thinking of expanding their family. They don't want this. And they're not even necessarily thinking about that. They're thinking about the lifestyle they want. But I have to get from this to a lifestyle. That's a second order design problem. The decisions I'm making down on the drawings of where the walls are going are affecting something called a lifestyle. Game design is very similar to that. I do all my work mainly in the Adobe Creative Suite, lots of Excel sheets and Microsoft Word stuff, and I'm making just bits and bobs. When someone's buying a game, they're just getting pieces of paper and cardboard and plastic all in a box. But that's not what they're buying. They're buying an experience. The game isn't the pieces, the game is what it makes them feel, how they interact, the stories that they tell. This is also a second order design problem. So when I'm working as an architect, I think about second order design problems all day. When I work as a game designer at night, I think about second order design problems all night. I'm basically synergizing these two aspects of my life. You will all have different experiences and life, different parts of your life that you can bring to whatever you're freelancing. Whatever you can do to make yourself unique will help you when you're out there basically representing yourself as a sole proprietor. Some last general bits of advice when you're freelancing: know your limits. You'll be able to put so much time and so much money into what you're freelancing with, but if you don't put a hard stop somewhere, you can put too much of yourself into that and just burn yourself out. You should set yourself some achievable goals that you can measure, and these are not things, big overarching goals. These are like, no one's checking in or setting due dates or giving you a syllabus when you start freelancing. So you sort of have to set goals for yourself, and that will be a good way for you to ask yourself, like, am I making progress towards what I wanted to be doing? Finally, you should keep learning. Knowledge really is power, because once you graduate, no one's going to be forcing you to learn anything more. But the more you know and the more you learn, the better off you're going to be. Keep reading textbooks. They're a really good source of information. And through a lot of library systems, you can just get textbooks for free. At least in Ohio, I can go to a library and get books from colleges and stuff. Additionally, I said your peer group is going to get smaller, so you're going to have to seek peers and mentors, because there's not going to be a ready supply of them. And it really helps to have people in your life that you can bounce your experiences off and talk these things through with. So let's start following down the funnel of it. I'm going to start talking about freelancing, at least what I do in the tabletop industry. If you want to call yourself a game designer, you are a game designer. I have no power over you and the labels that you wish to apply to yourself. But for me, when I talk about being a freelance tabletop designer, the freelance part means that I go and I sell my game designs to publishers. So that's sort of the break, at least I put in my brain, between someone who's just doing this as a hobby and someone who's doing this as a freelancer. So what is it like for me? Well, the tabletop game design community is small. It's very small, as well as the tabletop publishing community. Everyone knows each other in some degree, so it's a lot very interconnected. So your personality really matters, and you should be a good person. Especially consider your social media presence. If you're a troll online, people aren't going to want to work with you because they're going to find out about it. So just don't be bad. is a decent thing to go think about. Don't get into tabletop game design for the money, because there's really not a lot of it in there. It's usually a passion project for most people who are working in it, as it is for me. There are almost no full-time game designers. Most people are freelancing at night or freelancing on the side, as I am. Plus, you'll be spending money going to conventions, doing prototypes, all sorts of different things you have to invest in to get very little out. So if you're going in it for the money, maybe think about some other aspect. It is fun, it is rewarding. I mean, we are playing games and working on games, but it's still work. So whenever you turn anything from a hobby into a job, you're going to be working at it in some aspect. So I'm not talking about game design today. I'm saying when you're done, you want to turn it into a product. What is the process? There's generally 4 steps. You're going to make a sell sheet, you're going to pitch it, hopefully get it signed, and then you wait for a long, long, long time. So what is a sell sheet? A sell sheet is what you use to sell your game. It is something that game designers frequently use in place of a business card, because I'm not nearly as important as the games that I have designed. So the sell sheet has some basic information that the publishers are going to be interested in. So your player count, your game length, complexity, the list of components, so they can get a general idea of how much this game is going to cost. You don't want your rules on your sell sheet, you want the highlights of what makes it unique. You want the hook, because the publisher is thinking of this as a product. They're going to take this and they're going to try to sell it to gamers. So they don't need to know how to play your game, but they need to know, like, when I'm making ad copy or I'm trying to get this on the shelf, what is going to make someone excited to pick this game up? For Red Scare, it's a game where people wear decoder glasses. So when they look at the cards look different between different players. So like right there at the top is showing, hey, like this is the hook of Red Scare that you can put into it. For Kill All Humans, which is now the 3 Laws of Robotics from Floodgate Games, it's a social deduction game, but it's played like Hanabi or Headbands, where you're holding your card on your head, so you're the only player who doesn't know what role you are. there's the hook. It's right there prominently. Finally, all of your sell sheets should have your contact information because it is your business card in a way. So if they are interested in the game, they need a way to reach out to you. There's no right way to make a sell sheet. There's a lot of wrong ways. Just make sure it has the information that you want. There are so many sell sheets online. These are from some people who have much more graphic design prowess than me. But the whole purpose is you can hand it to a publisher, they can look at it and get interested in it and hopefully reach out and want to move further with you. So you've got your sell sheet. That means you're ready to do pitching. Before you pitch, it's a bunch of prep work. First, you're going to research publishers who are interested in your game. You don't want to pitch your light little party game to someone who does heavy Euros. It's not going to be a good fit, and they're not going to be interested. Additionally, you want to find who you need to contact specifically who handles submissions. If you write to someone who is in advertising or in HR or just their general like lost parts or something like that, and they get something saying, hey, I've designed a game, are you interested? They're like, no, and they're not even going to forward it on to who might be interested. So find the right person. Never send a copy of your game to a publisher unless they've asked for it. Because it's just going to show up, and I was talking about junk mail, it's going to look like junk mail to them. They're not going to open it up and be interested in your game, and you just invested a bunch of resources that you got wasted. For that reason, I almost always try to attempt to meet the publishers in person, because a face-to-face interaction will always have more power than something over the phone or by email. To that end, I contact publishers about 2 months out from an event that I'm attending. I send them a brief paragraph about my game. I attach the sell sheet so that they have a visual reference for them to look at. And I ask if they're scheduling meetings, because my goal is to meet with them face-to-face to have a quick discussion with them. Be sure to personalize your message because you did the research, right? No form letters. A form letter is very easy to spot, and they are just going to skip right past that. So make sure you are personalizing that to them and explaining why that person would be interested in your game. Thank them for their time. It's a slush pile that they're going to have to dig their way through, and so be kind, be courteous, be a good person. Make sure your game is ready. That means having a polished prototype. Everyone's game design, there's a lot of resources out there, the Game Crafter, drive-through cards, etc. These prototypes are getting better and better every year, and so you gotta at least compete on that level. Make sure it's been blind play tested, which means you've given it to a person and then you didn't teach them the rules and they opened it up and they were either able to play it with you watching or they took it home and they played it with their friends and told you how it went. The reason for that is when you give these games to a publisher, they're not gonna ask you to teach it there because they're giving you like a 10 to 15 minute meeting and then they're gonna go away, forget about it, and then open it up a month later and you're not in that box. They're going to have to open it up and be able to play it from that list of, from those rules and have the experience you want them to have. So you can't talk about, you can't be like, oh, this rule is a bit confusing, or this part is a little bit rough, or might need development. It all has to work on its own. To that end, I usually make care packages. They're nice, they're small. They have my contact information on it in multiple places. The reason they're small is that the publisher is going to have, they usually fly in, so they're going to have to put it in their luggage, so respect their space. Everything is needed to play the game is in the game. It's got the rules with my contact information on it. It's got the sell sheet in there with my contact information on it. The box is my contact information on it. Why? Because they're not going to open this thing up for a couple months. They may have forgotten about it, or things might get separated, and if they don't have a way to reach you, you're dead in the water, even if they love your game. So talking specifically about getting ready to pitch and meet them in person, make sure you're ready. When you're at these conventions, there are going to be people wearing with questionable hygiene practices and wearing questionable outfits. You don't want to be that person, so be sure to dress nice, be sure to bathe well. Practice 2 separate pitches, one that's about 30 seconds, one that's about 3 to 5 minutes. The 30-second pitch is for if you're on the floor show and you meet someone and they say they're interested in your game, it means talk to them for 30 seconds. They don't want you to teach them the game and tell them all about it. They just want 30 seconds to see if they're interested or not. When you're meeting with publishers, especially in speed dating events, I usually have a pitch that's about 3 to 5 minutes because that's about as long as they're going to be paying attention before they want to ask questions. Now, remember, you're pitching a product, you're not teaching the game. So you should be talking about those highlights. What makes your game unique? What makes them want to sign your game? You've done the sell sheet, right? So you can pitch off the sell sheet. You don't have to pull all the components out onto the table and show them it. You can point to things on your sell sheet. Use it as a tool. You researched that publisher you're meeting with, right? So all that stuff that made it so you didn't send them a form letter, use that information for why they should be interested, specifically them and their publisher, why they would want to pick up your game. Pitching and getting signed, we're talking book deals, doing artwork, any type of creative field. It's about getting lucky. And the best way to get lucky is to be at the right place at the right time. What I found is the best way to be in the right place at the right time is to have as many contact points with the industry and the people who are making decisions in the industry as possible. So that means attending college conventions, volunteering for publishers, and interacting and befriending them on social media. But none of this should be transactional. You should be doing these things because you are interested in this hobby or interested in working with these people. But you're not saying, like, I'll give you this like if you take a look at my game. It doesn't work that way, and if you're trying to be transactional, they will know that, and they will not want to work with you. You will fail time and time and again. You will be rejected time and time and again. And it's not going to be your fault. It's not even going to be your game's fault. They may take a meeting just because they were interested in the hook, knowing that they don't have space for it in their lineup. Remember that thick skin you were developing when you were getting your game critiqued? You have to use it again here, because people are going to be saying, no, I don't want this thing that you've made to go out and see more people. Finally, be that good person. Thank everyone you meet with. There's no reason that they have to take a meeting with you. You're not owed that, so if they do take a meeting with you, be respectful of their time and thank them for doing that with you. So, let's say you did get lucky. You got signed, yeah! Or at least they offered you a contract. What do you do now? One, do not demand an NDA. An NDA is a non-disclosure agreement. It means that they can't talk about your game or the mechanics that are in it. A publisher will never, ever sign an NDA, because if they have an NDA and then they publish something that's somewhat close to your game, you could say, aha, legal action against you. So if you ask for an NDA, you're going to be dead in the water. They're going to say that they can't do business with you. When you get your contract, you can review it against industry standards. There's a lot of resources. People are putting this type of stuff online now, so the numbers move around and stuff. Just make sure you're close to industry standards. If this is your first game that you're signing, you're not going to have a lot of wiggle room to negotiate with. You're not a known quantity. They can't sell it off of your name. You're not going to be able to play with the numbers too much. But there are some things that you should fight for. Number one of those is a reversion of rights. What is reversion of rights? Reversion of rights means I'm selling you the rights to make this game. But if you don't make this game, I get those rights back. Because if you don't have a reversion of rights and you sell off your game, they own it forever. And if they decide not to make it, that means you can't take that game and then sell it to another publisher for them to publish. Ask for things that you want within reason. If you don't ask for something and have it in a contract, there's no guarantee you'll get it. So these are things like, if you want to thank people, be sure to ask for it in your contract, because that space in a rule book is valuable. They would rather cut that page out for cost or fit more information or pictures or artwork or something. So if you don't ask for thank yous, you might not get it. Most contracts have a number of copies that you'll get for free that the publisher will just ship to you to give to friends, to family, to reviewers. If you don't have a specific number of copies, who knows how many you'll be getting. Finally, your name on the box in the rule book. The box may work better graphic design-wise without your name on it. And if the publisher feels that way, they might not put your name on it. So if you want to make sure your name is on the box or the rule book, make sure it's in the contract and legally binding. Finally, that LLC that we were talking about that makes you look professional and protects your assets, this is where you use it to sign the contract. You're not signing it as yourself, you're signing the contract as a business entity at this point. The final step after you sign is waiting. The first game I signed was Bitten with Cat Dragon Games. It didn't come out for 3 years. I signed and had Red Scare published before Bitten hit the market after having signed Bitten. So every publisher is different. The amount of communication that they're going to give with you is going to be different based off of how they work. But if your game is slated to come out in 2021 and it's 2019, don't be reaching out to them every month because they're not thinking about it. It's just something that's on the docket. You just have to be patient and communicate with them the way they want to be communicated with. Remember, this is your reputation. And if at this point you are this needy person poking and asking all the time, they're not going to want to work with you in the future. And your reputation might be that you're kind of controlling. So be careful of those things. That's all I have on freelancing and how I freelance in the tabletop industry. The more you know about a subject and the more intelligently you can talk on that subject, remember it's your reputation. And if people don't think you're a big dummy, I mean, that goes a long way for them wanting to take a look at what you're working on because they'll respect the projects and the time and the things that you're doing. So I really appreciate everybody coming out today, listening to the presentation that I have. Once again, I'm BK Game Design on social media, so if you have any interest in what I'm doing and want to follow me there, you can do so. I wasn't able to get BK Game Design on Gmail, so I'm Ben K Game Design via email, but I really appreciate you guys coming out, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them now.